Okay, why did we sell our rental houses? So I got a project going where we were selling our rental houses, investing the money into high yielding ETFs. Actually, we've sold most of our rental houses and we've invested most of our money into ETFs and other things. And people ask me like, why'd you sell the rental houses? Why didn't you keep the rental houses and refinance the rental houses and invest the money from the refinancing into the ETFs? Well, this is to answer those questions. So, 10 reasons why we sold our rental houses. This isn't like reasons number one being the number one reason up to number 10, the least. These are just 10 reasons. And there's actually like an 11th reason that people might say should be number one, but I didn't put it on the list. And I kind of didn't put it on the list. It kind of falls under all the things, but I'll talk about that at the end. So, reason one, high property taxes. I'm in Illinois. We have some of the highest property taxes in the entire country. $100,000 rental house in Illinois, taxes on a rental like $3,500 a year, so say $300 a month. We lived in Utah for a while. Our house was assessed for 500,000. Our taxes were less in Utah for a $500,000 house as they were in Illinois for a $100,000 house. Doesn't seem right, so high property taxes in Illinois. Non-landlord friendly laws. So I'm in Illinois again. During COVID, we had a tenant who was just tearing our property apart. There was nothing we could do about it. We couldn't evict them. It was just horrible. Even after COVID, still had trouble getting the renter out. They finally moved out, did about $20,000 worth of damage. They are on a fixed income on Social Security, so we couldn't really get anything out of it. It's just part of doing business, I guess. Rising insurance costs. Probably 5 years ago, insurance on these houses we had were probably $400 a year. As we've been selling them, the last couple of houses, they were approaching $1,000 a year. Lack of a good paying careers, not careers for me, but careers for the tenants that live locally that have to pay the rent. So as the price of everything goes up, the price of salaries don't keep up with it. So the tenants get angry when you raise the rent $50 a month to pay for taxes and insurance costs, but yet their pay at their job doesn't match that rate. So I can't blame them for kind of being upset. High maintenance repair cost. My one tenant, they had a blocked up sewer line. I called the plumber. They ran a snake all the way out to the street. He hooked onto a black garbage bag, pulled it out. I don't know how a black garbage bag gets in a sewer line unless a kid perhaps flushed it down the toilet. I think the cost was $260. Then you have the problem of trying to get the tenant to pay for that. So this particular tenant moved out, quit paying rent. Any deposit I had went toward repairs and damages and unpaid rent. Still probably $3,000-$4,000 in the hole with that one. High maintenance repair costs. That's just one example. Everything's expensive. Interest rate increases, so we didn't have mortgages on most of our properties, and mortgages we did have were done when the rates were under 4% or so. But if I did want to refinance something or buy something new, with the rates being for rental properties around 6 to 7%, kind of makes it hard to make a profit, especially with the cost of everything else and the lack of good paying jobs that tenants can find around here. Local fees. Our local town has the great idea of inspecting rental properties, which is totally fine. But then they want us to pay, when I say us, the tenant or the landlord, to pay something like, let's say, $100 a year per inspection to have them tell us that they don't like something. I don't like those extra fees. So the city says, well, the landlord can pay for it. Well, the landlord's going to raise the rent, pass it on to the tenant. So that's the tenant who ends up paying in the long run. So I have no problem with having inspections because I've had Section 8 rental houses in the past and they come and inspect once a year and never had any problem. In fact, I'd go years at a time without them finding any problems with any of my properties. So it's just the fact that they want to charge to have that done is a little bit of annoyance. Economic uncertainty. So who knows? Everything above kind of falls under this local economy or federal economy, federal rate increases, just a whole pile of things. Difficult landlord utility obligations. So in our town, if my tenant runs up a big sewer bill, moves out, the city comes after the landlord to pay for it. They'll turn the water off and you can't get it turned back on until you pay the tenant's bills to catch up on them. I don't really think that's quite fair, but that's the way they do it. Alternative investment opportunities. The whole thing is I'm taking the money from these properties and investing them into ETFs, covered call ETFs. So we start doing that when we sold our first few properties a few years ago. Those investments are coming out pretty well, which kind of accelerated the idea of selling the rest of our properties. And the one thing that is not on here that I kind of mentioned in a way, but people would say, where in this list are bad tenants? And I didn't want to put that on there because even though my last couple of tenants were two of the worst I ever had, I would say 95% of my tenants were really good. And many of them are my friends today. Long term friendships have developed between myself and some of my former tenants. And it's only a very few that kind of ruin it for everybody else. But I didn't want to put that on the list and let people think that that was one of the reasons. So these are the 10 of the reasons why we sold our rental properties. Hope that helps answer some questions.